Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, industry explorers. Thank you guys for being here with us today. We're going to talk about fitness entrepreneurship with the Dr. Rick Richey. How are you this morning?
Hi, I'm doing well, Siobhan. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm so excited to have you here. I have recently been studying for my NASM CPT certification. So this is really cool for me, if no one else.
Good. How's your studying going?
It's good. You know, it's a lot to have to memorize all the different muscles. And the other one that's kind of challenging to memorize is the
joint actions?
Yes, the joint actions. You already know. You're so good.
They go together, right? Like here's the anatomy, but here's the movement that you have to know too. And what plane of motion is the movement in? Yeah, that stuff can be challenging.
And then it's what kind of injuries people sustain most commonly and what it's from, and are their shoulders rolling forward or are their knees going inward, and what does that mean and how do you work that out? That's the other hard thing for me to memorize. So that's how it's going for me. But enough about me. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about the fitness industry. Yeah. For our explorers, can you describe the fitness industry as a whole?
The fitness industry as a whole currently is in a hole. And that is obviously through the pandemic. But something interesting is happening with this, as is happening with every single industry, is there's a shift towards automation, and there's a shift from kind of a brick and mortar to an online experience. And that started before the pandemic with companies like Peloton and the Daily Burn and some really, really other big, large companies. Technogym's doing a lot of great things out there with their digital and their distance. I know Everlast is coming out with a digital product soon. So the boxing company. So these things are happening, and this pandemic's precipitated a shift towards that. But now we're also seeing, hopefully the last little bit of the pandemic as we are winding down, and businesses are opening back up, and restaurants are opening back up, and gyms are opening back up. So rather than having one or the other, I think that the industry is going to move forward really strong in having fitness facilities in person open up, because sometimes people just don't want to work out at their houses. They don't have the equipment that they would have at a gym. But sometimes you want the convenience of working out from home. And this is considered, I read something recently, I can't remember. It's a worldwide number. It's like $15 trillion for the worldwide fitness industry and wellness industry. So there's a lot still out there and a lot's happening in it.
So what I'm hearing is the fitness industry actually is... It includes other industries as well, because you touched a lot on e-learning and everything relating to technology. And so you have to have people who are programmers and DevOps and people on the back end and UX designers and project managers for even to create, and talent and video production teams to actually film the trainers. I think you've had an experience doing that, haven't you?
Right. Yeah, I have. And I mean, we're looking at, here's my Apple Watch, right? So there's the Whoop and the Fitbit. I mean, the wearables are huge. The developers for the apps for those things. I mean, it expands. The fitness industry is an industry now, right? Like it used to be just the dude that owns a gym in the strip mall down the block, right? But now it is an industry, and there is big money behind it, and there's opportunity for business here too.
I love it. What are some careers? You know what? I'm actually going to start here. What are some careers in health and exercise science? Because I'm really intrigued by your master's in exercise science and your doctorate in health science.
Yeah. So thank you.
Would love to know what kind of opportunities lie with those degrees.
Okay. I think the underhand pitch here is the opportunities in the exercise science world are personal trainers. And right now we are also seeing a shift where we're looking at personal trainers as a career. And that's not what it used to be. I remember when I first started back in February of 2002, I got my first personal training job. And I remember my parents thinking that was really cute and still wondering what I was going to be when I grew up. And I don't know. I was young, and that's just what I wanted to be right now. I wasn't so focused on what I wanted to be when I grow up. And now it's almost 20 years later. And guess who's still a personal trainer? So this guy. So with that being said, personal training is probably a pretty big on that list on what you can do in the exercise science world. But we're not just looking at corporate gyms anymore. So what we're looking at now are this, and post-pandemic, who knows what this is going to look like, but they're still out there. So the corporate wellness programs, and corporate wellness is where you get, I mean, basically for our purposes, a fitness focused program developed for large corporations. And so there are partnerships, let's say with like Citibank was the first really large firm to do something like that in the United States. Pepsi was a really large company to do something like that in the US. And there are several examples of Japan and what that looked like. So now they put in these fitness programs at corporate wellness programs, focusing on fitness, focusing on smoking cessation, like a lot of different things these programs entail. But for the fitness professional, we're looking at an opportunity to go to work almost like a 9 to 5, because you are working when people are at work. That's when you're going in to these facilities. So it gives most trainers a better sense of schedule, which is not what we had before, right? So I might start at 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. and do an 8 a.m. before people have to be at work at 9 or 9:30 or 10 o'clock. And then I work again, many back-to-back hours, 5:30, 6:30, 7:30, because I'm bookending people's day with a few kind of peppered in between, which makes for a really long day and does not make for a great day when you're a dad, right? So when I was young and I was just doing it on my own, that was fine. I enjoyed it, but now I need a bit more schedule. So like the corporate wellness route might be the best thing for people. So there's opportunities for fitness. And then there's also the opportunity to educate. So people are out there putting out content, and content generation can generate income as well.
Yes, but scientific evidence-based content is the best.
Yeah, well, I mean,
'Cause
you're
there's
talking to
several
somebody who has
trends.
higher education in exercise science. So that should be assumed if you're hearing
Yeah.
it from me. But yes, thank you for that.
And it sounds silly to say things like that out loud because you
Yeah.
think it would be implied, but when you scroll on TikTok or Instagram, not everybody has the education under their belt, so not everybody is pulling from scientific reviews or journals or studies, and they're just going off of these fads and trends, or maybe, and it's kind of unfortunate when people do pull from the scientific studies, but then they kind of twist it and make it into a fad. Do you ever notice that in the industry?
Yeah, of course, that's the case, and I see that a lot, even with people with some nice credentialing at the end of their name, and they twist things around just to be able to fit their product or their line of content on people.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I will say this for other people who are out there producing content, and it inspires other people to move, whether or not that's science-based. If you can get people inspired or influenced to move, get people moving. Like, I think that's fair. And I don't think that you just need to be science-based to encourage people to do that. So let's get everybody to play with us.
So what was your thesis on when you were getting your doctorate?
So my master's thesis was on ACL issues. My doctoral dissertation was on something called attribution theory and attributional retraining. And what that means is my goal for that was to take fitness professionals, so certified personal trainers in the New York City area, brought them in, took them through an attributional retraining program, or what do your clients blame to be the reason that they do not work out on their own? And we went through a blame retraining or an attributional retraining program where I taught the trainers to work with their clients to focus on reattribution. So if you don't have enough time, or if I got family things and I got this and I got this and all these reasons why I cannot go and exercise on my own, and then we focus that really on what you can do and not what you can't do, and noticed a statistically significant increase in the number of sessions that people were doing outside of the personal training session. So this attribution retraining was the focus of my doctoral dissertation.
I think that's fantastic. Is that something that happened to make its way to the 7th edition of the NASM CPT textbook?
No, I don't think so.
It sounds like it.
So I did this kind of recently, and I haven't talked to NASM about any incorporation of attributional retraining into that next edition, because I'm still working on it. And this was done in 2018, but I'm still working on it and tweaking it. And I have gone to conferences and industry conferences and things like that, and done these presentations on it. And they go over really well, and it helps to support trainers supporting their clients. And I think it's really good, but it has not quite made it to text yet.
Oh, I mean, I think it's really awesome because, people give themselves so many self-limiting beliefs or so many boundaries, and they just come up with excuse after excuse. And I think your research is really going to, it does help people with their retention and therefore their progress.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So let's talk about fitness entrepreneurship. I mean, it just covers, it covers so many different things, and it depends. Are you going to go the technical route? Are you going the personal trainer route? Are you going the corporate wellness route? Are you going the research route? There's so many different things, but you yourself are a gym owner. You actually own several gyms. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. One of the things about being a fitness entrepreneur is I wanted to help other trainers become fitness entrepreneurs. They just didn't have a place to do that. So I created a company called Independent Training Spot. It's in New York City. We have 3 gym locations, and we're growing still. And what I wanted to do is provide a gym basically as a co-working space for fitness professionals. So the fitness professionals come to me, I provide the gym and the shower, the towels, the equipment, all the things that you need to get a good workout with your client. But I also have to have the enterprising trainer. I've got to have the personal trainer that says, I want to run my own business, but I can't do that out of a corporate gym. Right? So you work for a corporate gym, but you can't run your own business out of it. You run their business out of it. So what I've done is I created a place where basically you rent space from me the same way, like people talk about this a lot, like the same way that a hairdresser would rent a chair at a salon. So this is people renting facility from me to train their clients out of. And so now these trainers can become what we call independent trainers. They're not working for a corporate facility. They are not employed. They are being paid directly by their clients. And then that trainer is paying me and my company for the use of the space. So it gives me the opportunity to be a gym owner, to run a business, but also it makes me feel good because I'm giving them the opportunity to be business owners, which is something they wouldn't be able to do unless they were just going outside and doing this in the park. And in New York City, in particular, it is not the most friendly weather conditions, neither in the winter nor in the summer. So it gives people a place that they can go to.
That's awesome. So how would you get started? If that was the, since the focus here is really fitness entrepreneurship, what would you need to do in order to get started?
So there are a couple of things that depends, right? So getting started at what, right? So if you want to be an independent personal trainer, then thank you. Appreciate it. A great concept, great model. I appreciate that. So if you want to be an independent personal trainer, then you can go into finding maybe a gym that will allow you to rent space from them. Now, if you go to large corporate gyms, and none of them are going to do that. So that's against their policy. They won't do that. But if you can find smaller gyms, maybe they don't do this. But if you can put together a proposal, then you can pitch this to them. Look, I can bring in X amount of money each month. I do this many sessions. So this can benefit their bottom line simply by providing you access to the gym facility to train your clients out of. If you have the opportunity to do that at a gym like mine, which allows that, which is the whole purpose of this one, then you can do that. Now, the other question there regarding what we were just talking about is, how do you become a gym owner? And here's what I used to do. I used to tell everybody, oh, you want to own a gym? Do it. It's so good. Enjoy. I think that's a great idea. And after becoming one, I usually go, yeah, you may want to check out some numbers on that and make sure that this is the lifestyle you want to live, because a lot of people think owning your own business is going to give you a lot of freedom. And owning your own business does not necessarily open up your schedule, but it does significantly increase your responsibility. So you may have less freedom and far more responsibility. So for those fitness professionals out there, there are opportunities. It may be something that you want to do, but you have to really look at it and see if this is the right play for you. Also, we know that some of the big things in the fitness industry are group classes and small group training, which I don't allow at my facilities, but a small group training is a great way to make money in the fitness industry. If you charge, let's say $10 a class and you get 30 people to join up and you're doing this outside in the park, that's not bad, like $300 an hour, right? Like that's decent, good for you. In fact, I may close my gyms and start doing that myself. So it's a great business model, and we see them charging far more than $10 in New York City for things like that. So it's a good model. I think it's a really sustainable model, and something that many fitness, kind of enterprising fitness individuals look at and say, I bet there's an opportunity for me here. One of the things I want to tell people just to be a bit more aware of is that they feel like just because they have a large kind of social media following, that is then going to turn into a large business following. And that's not true for the majority of people. So with that being said, it is much better to be very clear with your message if you're going to use, let's say, Instagram for a marketing platform. So I do it a little bit of marketing, but I put family stuff on there too, because like this is my way of sharing things in my life and things that are important to me. So I'll share things with my family, but I share things about business as well. And if you're doing it solely for marketing, then you need to have your marketing down and not just pitch out to everybody. Limit your field and focus. And if you don't have a lot of followers, you don't need it to make money. What you need to do is have followers that are truly interested in what you are doing, and that will then potentially convert into something financial. So with that being said, like, don't live your life to get people to double tap that screen and like what you put up there and try to get more followers. It's good. It's a fun game to play. But if you're not able to monetize that, then it's not a business platform. It is just a social platform. And that's fine, but just be aware of that.
I love you, Mom. Thank you for following all my stuff.
Yeah. I wish my mom would.
So I actually recently saw on your Instagram that a year ago, COVID, of course, was really turning the world upside down, and it turned your world upside down a little bit. You had just signed a lease for a gym, for a recovery gym, but you ended up losing like 6 figures on it. That's tough. But that's the reality of what could happen as a gym owner. Those are the responsibilities. And I don't want to say consequences, because that was like totally out of your control, but those are things that can happen. So how do you prepare for something unexpected like that?
There's no preparation for that. Like there's a mix of two stories there. So we had a recovery facility that was there. So fitness and cognitive and physical stress management facility. And that was open for about 2 years. And we closed it down when we were able to open it back up. Like nobody was showing up. People weren't ready to come back. So we ended up closing that facility down. But the other one was another independent training spot. So it was a gym and we signed a lease, but we signed a lease the day before the lockdown. Here's the thing. We knew the lockdown was coming, and we signed the lease because we were like, oh, we'll have 2 weeks of being shut down, because that's what we were told. 2 weeks for our designer and our contractor to work on things. So 2 weeks later, when they opened the doors and let us in, boom, we're going right in, full steam ahead. We're ready to go. And we'll have the gym open early while we're still under free rent, so we can start building our business while we're not having really any expenses. And so anyway, that 2 week shutdown, it's not over in full, over almost a year, 14 months later. So we were able to open at 1/3 capacity in September of 2020. And we weren't even reaching 1/3 capacity at that time. So can you ever prepare for things like this? I would say you can, but that just goes into your lease, and it's called a force majeure clause, which there will not be another lease that I sign in the future that does not have a force majeure clause.
Good to know. That's something that I need to write down. Otherwise, I will never remember it. How did you handle the way it affected you mentally, mental health wise?
I never really beat up on myself with that. And there were times where it was stressful and lost a lot of money, and it hurt. It hurt. But I also remember looking at my wife years ago and saying, before COVID even was here, and I said, you know what? I've really enjoyed what I've been doing. I really enjoy the fitness industry and gyms and everything that's been going on with this. And I said, if we lose everything tomorrow, for whatever reason, things just fall apart, I'd still be happy. I'm happy that we did what we did. I'd be sad if it all fell apart. But it was a good ride. Like it's been enjoyable. And that's my mindset. And, I understand that that we might have to sell our apartment in New York City, and we might have to move out, and there are a lot of things that could kind of snowball into bigger and more stressful conversations. But I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking about how I enjoyed the benefits and the blessings of what was there. And then as we started to lose things, realizing that that may have stolen from my retirement, right? It may have stolen from my growth in the business. But fortunately, due to some government funding and things like that, we were able to keep our apartment, right? And due to just open communications with our landlords, we were able to keep our facilities that didn't close. So, it sucks. Some of the things sucks. Mentally, it sucks. But I just try to look at everything I put like 5 years out, right? So 5 years out, 5 years from now, if I look back on this moment, what is that going to mean to me? And in the moment, it can hurt really bad. But 5 years looking back, I just saw myself as being stronger because of it, and looking back on this and saying it hurt, but it calloused me, it strengthened me, and it allowed me to move forward stronger than before. And so I do believe that that's going to happen regardless. All the money lost, all the pain, all the stress that was there, I just put that 5-year forward mentality so I can look back while in the moment and go, you'll be all right.
It sounds like you really value effort, and you really value growth, and you value experience. Would that be an accurate assumption?
Yeah, I value all of those things, right? The growth, the experience. Here's the thing, like I hadn't experienced the loss of a business really until this happened. And then I lost Recover, and then I lost Recover's sister company, which was an on-site version of Recover. So those were two highly invested facilities. I got an eviction notice from one of my gyms. I lost my security deposit, which was over $100,000 on that one that I signed the day before the lease. Right there, I'm broke. You know what I mean? Like I put a lot of money in, and over the past year, I've gotten really not much out. But I'm all right. I'll be all right. And, 5-year forward mentality. Let me look back and see where I am now and go, I'm going to grow from that.
5-year forward mentality. You should trademark that. I
I
love it.
should.
Everybody needs that on a hat or on a tattoo on their wrist. 5-year forward mentality. Alex says, love the exploration of different business models, handling setbacks like COVID, and the personal side of running a business. I completely agree. And it's really encouraging to hear such a positive mindset in such terrible, really hard times. And having a 5-year forward mindset, do you think about having like a backup plan? Do you think about like how where you're going to fall back financially? You also mentioned having open communication with your landlords and taking advantage of the government assistance. So, there's another lesson that I heard from you telling your story, and it's that be honest and don't be afraid to ask for help, because you never know what you may get in return.
Yeah, that's true. There was the reason I got the eviction notice on my doors because I stopped paying rent like everybody else, but I didn't communicate. So when the moratorium on rent was lifted, then that day posted on my door, boom, just like that. So I had somebody that sent a picture and goes, hey, you may want to look at this. And I was like, And at the time I was visiting family, my wife's family in South Carolina. And so now I'm not even there. I can't even do anything about it. So what's the only thing I can do? I got to reach out to this person and let's talk. And he just basically said to me, I didn't hear from you at all. You stopped paying. I don't know what you want. I don't even know if you're still in business. And I was like, it's my fault. That was my fault. Right. So me then taking that moment and going, I've got several other landlords I should probably reach out to right now. And I was able to do that. And because they were hurting at the time and didn't want to lose any more tenants, they're all willing to work with me on rent. And I was able to work out a deal with decreased rent to help maintain the business. And that's something that doesn't happen unless you talk about it.
I love this advice. Let's take it back a little bit. Deep breath. Okay, COVID. No more talking about COVID. Let's talk about getting started. What are some maybe educational degrees or certifications that you should need, maybe you don't need to have? What's your take on getting started in the fitness industry and what education and certifications you need? Wow. Could I have been more awkward with this question?
All right. I'm going to interpret that the way I think you meant it. And so I'm going to go with certification. So first of all, the fitness industry is relatively unregulated, and they're certainly not regulated by any government. So there have been several instances where states tried to step in and create a license and a registration for fitness professionals. And basically the non-governmental governing bodies of the fitness industry, which are the certifications and a large company called IHRSA, so the International Health Racket Sports Association, jumped in and goes, stop. We can regulate ourselves. And this is how we're going to do it. So IHRSA and the partnership with kind of the big certifying bodies that were out there at the time. So especially NASM, so National Academy of Sports Medicine, with whom I've been an educator since 2006. ACSM, American College of Sports Medicine, and the National Strength and Conditioning Association, the NSCA. So it's like the big three, along with several others, ACE. They all work together to say, how can we become third-party accredited? Which means we have somebody else accrediting our program to make sure that we are meeting industry standards. And so now there are multiple, what is called NCCA accredited certifications that are out there that allows the fitness industry to say, we can do this on our own. Here's the other thing. As a fitness professional, whether that's a fitness trainer, a certified personal trainer, or a group X teacher, you don't have to have a degree in the field. I went back after school to get degrees in the field, but I did that because I love it, right? I love the industry. I love learning. I wanted to know more. And because I was working and teaching exercise science to personal trainers, I wanted to have a deeper knowledge and maybe be able to teach this at a higher level somewhere else. So some people are like, well, why would I get a degree in exercise science when I can just get a personal training certification? That's true. But you will, there's an opportunity to top out with that. And also, given that there are so many people that are going to school now getting exercise science degrees, you might see the opportunity of just having a certification not being as solvent for you as a trainer to be able to get a job as it would be for somebody that has a degree in the field, because the times, they are a-changing.
It sounds like getting a degree is a way to really become a subject matter expert. Is like, what makes a subject matter expert?
I mean, that's a good question. A degree certainly will put you in a better position to be a subject matter expert than only a certification, but there are a lot of people who have certifications that are subject matter experts, right? They have a lot of experience, and I think experience goes along with being an expert. So for instance, at university, you might have something called an adjunct professor, and that adjunct professor is not somebody that teaches at the university full time. They might not even have the highest degrees at the university, but they're probably the ones that were out there doing it. They were the ones out there running the businesses, opening the gyms, doing the training, supporting the process of helping people get results. And that person is as much or more of a subject matter expert in the real application of education as are the people who are simply PhDs. Oh, those simple PhDs that have a doctorate in a related field, that are associate professors that are teaching full time, but they're not out doing it. And so that's why I think having adjunct professors at universities, don't discount that. I think it's really valuable to have somebody that was in the dirt, getting dirty, doing the work, that you can ask those questions to, not just asking a question to somebody that says, well, I've heard this is how it's done.
You're an adjunct professor, aren't you?
I was for years. I actually stopped doing adjunct work when I started going through my doctoral program, because I was working on my doctorate, right? So I had a full-time job. I had gyms, and I did not want to teach while I was trying to write multiple papers a week. So so I stopped doing that.
So if someone were to go the degree route, the 4-year university route, or get their master's or doctorate, what are some of the things that they gain access to through the university?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think that, first of all, when you go to school, you really refine your writing process, especially in higher education. So it's a lot more writing and a lot less A, B, C, or D, circle or bubble in, which one it is. So when you practice writing that much, guess what you're going to get better at, right?
Writing.
So now your blog can start to take off. Now you can become a subject matter expert that can write chapters in textbooks for educating bodies. So for instance, with NASM, I just finished writing a chapter for a new project that they're working on and been assigned a second chapter. So I'm writing textbook chapters for these companies. I have friends that write blogs for ACE, so the American Council on Exercise, people that write blogs and create content for these things. Why? Because you're a subject matter expert with a degree, so amount of education. It doesn't mean that you can't do that without the degree, but what you learn, including the writing skills, will help you with that.
When you're at that higher level education, it becomes less of what you're learning from your professors and more what you're going out and finding on your own. Wouldn't that be accurate? I'm actually thinking more with my personal experiences. I was a theater degree, or I was a theater major, and I chose to do my senior honors project on orthostatic intolerance, because I was dealing with fall protection, work at height, and something that people were concerned about was what happens if you fall and then you're just suspended from your harness. So I was looking at physiology, and
Wow.
I did a presentation, and I presented with the kinesiology honors made people instead of the theater honors kids, because they had other, I was talking about physiology, less so about anything theater related. So it was really fun for me because I had the freedom to I really wanted to make my schedule work for me. So I actually, speaking of asking for permission or asking for things you may not otherwise have access to, I requested to be exempt from taking a beginning to director's class because I thought it wouldn't really help my honors project as much. So one thing that I really, really miss about being in school is the access to journals, the access to scientific-based reviews, the journals, the studies, the cases, the experiments, everything. Because when you're no longer a student, you no longer have access to EBSCOhost, or that was the one that I used the most, So if you're in school, oh my gosh, take advantage of that. For sure. What are some of the other things? I'm working on a
project right now where it's a type 2 diabetes fitness specialist program, right? So people can sign up and become a type 2 diabetes fitness specialist. I almost enrolled in my old school again for a class, not to take the class, just to get access to their library. So that was so valuable. That library access is so valuable. What I ended up doing instead is just using PubMed and what's available for the from HSS, because that then allows other people to access what I access. So if anybody wanted to find exactly what I was talking about, unless they had university credentials to get into the library, they just have to trust me. So now anybody that wants to look up something that I've produced can now go to PubMed or other open sources and be able to find exactly what I was talking about. And I think that that's valuable too. So that's what I chose to do to help support people. But I am missing out on some really important content otherwise that I would have access to. So you're right about that. That university access to the library is super valuable.
What research I think would be really interesting is, hold on. What is it? Hypothyroidism, fitness and hypothyroidism, and I don't know. I think people who suffer from that, I personally know family who suffer from hypothyroidism, and they really struggle with weight loss. So I think it'd be really interesting to see more research come out regarding that. Agreed. We had a couple of comments that came in. Someone said, "Thank you for the morning jumpstart and awesome lessons and sharing your story. Thank you for tuning in."
Thank you.
Someone says, "Great convo. Thanks for the knowledge. So glad you guys could tune in." Someone else says, "Working at height with rope access climbing, I tell my guys the greatest teacher on ropes should be yourself." Oh, absolutely. Personal accountability is huge. And we were talking a little bit about it here. Do you think that personal trainers are the people who have the best personal accountability? Because I don't.
No.
I always need a coach.
No, but personal trainers are people, and some of them are really dialed into their exercise programs, but they eat garbage. Some people eat garbage. Some people eat garbage. They do great workouts. Some people eat really clean, and they're personal trainers, but they don't really spend much time on the exercise. Some people are great across the board. Some people aren't, right? They're just, there's nobody that needs to be on a pedestal. Living it, walking the walk, I think is very important. Also, not judging a book by its cover. So there might be fitness professionals out there. I've experienced this as a manager when I was hiring people, is that I had hired a couple of personal trainers at the gym, and they were obese, but they had a great story. Fitness changed their lives. One of them lost almost 100 pounds. Were they still obese? Yes. And then you'd have people that would come in and be like, I can't believe you hired those people. Look at the fat trainer over there. And I'm like, how awful is that? Right? Like that trainer has done so much more work than you could ever imagine doing, things that you've never dreamed of putting yourself through, the amount of work and the process they've been through. And another thing I tell people is that if you spend time, look around the gym, there's not a lot of overweight or obese people at the gym. We're selling a service to people who are already okay, right? So I need somebody to be there to represent. This is what we talk about. Representation matters across the board for everyone. Yes. In fitness industry, obesity, representation matters. And there are people out there that want to go to the gym, that want to make physical changes in their lives, to become physiologically more fit, maybe lose weight. They want the freedom that fitness can provide, but they're not free and comfortable to go to a place and do that. So I hired people that would help to support that process. And I would like to see that change happen more in the fitness industry.
I can't wait to make this into a soundbite and like blast it all over social media. That's so great.
Thank you.
Let's wrap it up with using our last few minutes talking about some entrepreneur insights. If you are starting out as a personal trainer or you want to own your own gym, I know the NASM, there's a chapter in the book that talks about getting liability insurance.
Yeah.
What are some of the other things that you need to consider if you want to start on that route?
Yeah, the liability insurance is very important. When you're no longer working at a gym, a corporate facility, they pay for your liability insurance. When you go out on your, or even if you're working at that corporate gym, but you're training somebody in the park outside of the corporate gym, you're not under their umbrella, which means you need to get some liability insurance in case something happens. And with that being said, you could get a 1-year multi-million-dollar policy for less than $200. So it's going to cost maybe a few sessions of your money to pay for that, but insurance is insurance. It's the just in case, and so that's a just in case that needs to happen. Some people wait for the perfect time to start their business, and I'm going to encourage you to not wait for the perfect time, because you're going to keep making excuses as to why it's not perfect, and you're not going to take action. So I encourage you to take action, but don't take action without planning. So plan for what can be, whatever that is, whether it's a personal training, whether it's a small group training, group fitness, corporate programming, educational content, becoming a subject matter expert on something that is valuable to you. I have a friend of mine that just started working years ago with people with amputations. So, at this point, he's been doing this for almost 10 years. I would consider him a subject matter expert in that. And if I ever had somebody that came in, I would refer them out to this guy. And I feel more comfortable. I have a higher degrees of education, but I don't have that experience. So I'd refer to that guy that's living that life and working with those people. So I think that's valuable to know where you are, what are your strengths, and then referring people out. The other thing we refer people out to all the time, and too many trainers don't, is there are people that sometimes are just in pain. And people go to their trainers and say, oh, my back hurts. Why does my back hurt? My shoulder hurts. Why does my shoulder hurt? Let me tell you something, trainers. You probably don't know the answers. You can look at movement and help them move better. And maybe that movement dysfunction is a cause of that pain or discomfort, but maybe it's not. And so that's not within our scope of practice to deal with pain. So I'm going to ask that the fitness professionals, first of all, it doesn't mean you have to stop training people. It just means don't train them through anything that creates pain. And if they're passively in pain, which means they just hurt without doing anything, you don't need to be training that person. That person needs to go see a physician. They need to go see a physical therapist, and they need to be examined to make sure that there's nothing severely wrong. Couldn't agree more. Refer out. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Facebook user.
I think this was all really fantastic insight. I'm so glad that you could join us today. We have some really awesome nuggets of information throughout this
Thank you.
entire live stream. Thank you again so much for doing this with me. Is there anything that you would like to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, so if you liked what you heard and you'd like to hear a little bit more, if you're in the fitness industry or you're fitness industry adjacent, which means you kind of like it and you'd like to hear more, then I host what's called the NASM CPT podcast. That's the National Academy of Sports Medicine Certified Personal Trainer podcast. So check that out. You can also find me on Instagram at dr.richey, R-I-C-H-E-Y. And if you would like to email me with any questions, feel free to do so. rick.richey@nasm.org.
Love it. Thank you again so much. And guys, make sure you reach out to Dr. Rick Richey with any more of your questions. And until next time, explorers, I will see you guys on our next adventure.